Do you know what an expert on time travel and an honest politician have in common? There's no such thing. And welcome back to the heart of the stories we tell. I'm Rob the host, and this is another look deep into what makes a story, a theory on storytelling by a storyteller who believes that every story has merit. And tonight's episode is a primer on time travel, or what happens when events happen out of sequence in story, not just out of story. As you all know, I've been covering quite a few time travel stories lately, from Legends of Tomorrow to the TV show Timeless, to the TV show Doctor Who, although that's not really back for a while, and even The Flash has been touching on it, and I guess you could say Westworld too. And you know what? It kind of bugs me that sometimes when I talk about these things, you guys don't know where I'm coming from. So this week, I want to talk all about time travel and what happens when you do it. Lots of movies and TV shows, both good and bad, have done it over the years, and there's even some conspiracy theories that say that it's actually possible to do it in the real world. I don't care how you pronounce Bernstein. I don't believe that. However, as we move forward here, I want to talk about it as if it were real and not just a show. How it would really work, and what the writers need to take into account when they write these. To start off with, according to one of the smartest people in the world, time travel is impossible, because anything that happened during a time travel would cause things to work in reverse. Something's cause could happen after its effect, and cause and effect have to be linked or else nothing else in the world works. But believe it or not all scientists believe that. In fact, nothing in Einstein's theory of relativity disproves the ability to time travel. And as such, that leaves just enough of a hole there that would allow us to do some speculative fiction and some science fiction on the idea of what would happen if you could time travel. So let's talk about exactly what that would entail. Well, you'd need to have a ton of energy, you'd need to follow some basic rules, and if you didn't, you'd probably mess up all of time and space. Now, there are two versions of time travel, traveling to the future and traveling to the past. And one of the things I want to make sure and point out is that technically traveling to the future is not a problem. It's the same thing as if you moved to Boston for 3 years and then you came home to where you live. The whole timeline continued, just without you. Except instead of you moving to Boston, you just didn't exist for that 3 years. Now, that's pretty simple. The problem is when you go back. Because when you go back, you change things. And there's so many things. During Timeless, I pointed out the fact that saving someone's life changes the genetic structure in an inconceivably huge way. One of the first episodes, they stop the Hindenburg from going down. And when they do that, they change who someone's parents are. Well, think about all the people who die. If just, let's say you save 5 people in the year 1900. Alright, you saved 5 people. Now, then each one of those 5 people go on and do things, and those things affect people. What if one of them gets married to someone? Well, who did that person get married to the first time? Who did they have kids to in the original first timeline? That sort of thing totally throws off entire genetic structures. Maybe no one in New York City 100 years later is the same person because we threw off that much. On the other hand, there are other things that are even more minute. I want you to think about this. How much water do you drink? How much sweat do you give off? How much air do you breathe out? How much air do you breathe in? All of those are things that make very, very minor changes. If you just step into the past, you're taking up some of that air. You're using some of their energy. You're drinking some of their water. Even if you try your best not to affect anything major, the best you can do is not affect anything major. In general, I don't mean that each show has to follow the exact same rules. In fact, I'm glad they don't. Each of these shows set up their own internal consistency. In Timeless, you can't go back to a time period you already exist in. In Doctor Who, the rules change every single time he explains them. In Quantum Leap, he could only leap into the body of someone within his own lifetime. In Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the clock was always running in San Dimas. At the end of the day, though, some basics need to be, at least, tried to be kept up with. And that is the fact that what you change needs to make sense for what happens later. In the TV show The Flash, I give them credit for at least trying to make it make sense when it doesn't make sense by saying that there's a time boom. the equivalent of a sonic boom, only in the time-space thing. So every time you go back, things don't quite work out the same way. You can't be better at time travel. But of course, that's thrown out under the bus the second we realize Reverse Flash can do that. Most of my information on how time travel would or wouldn't work comes from a website I found a few years ago. In fact, this graphic is based entirely on his theory on how time travel would or wouldn't work. I like what he does, although I dislike the fact that when he talks about movies and TV shows with time travel, he wants to make them all follow the same rules. Once again, in Bill and Ted, the clock is always running in San Dimas, and he doesn't like that. He also only handles closed stories, mostly movies. I've never seen him do a video game, and he doesn't really talk about TV shows because there's too much that could change. So, all in all, most of this I'm going to have to just do on my own, following his base concepts. As we walk through the heart of each of these shows, I'm going to try to explain how their individual rules work, and figure out whether or not they're being consistent within themselves. And for the most part, I think they are. Well, except for Doctor Who. Doctor Who is very much just making fun of itself more often than not. And, well, I really like the memes making fun of Flash. But at the end of the day, these are all pretty good stories, and I like the idea of time travel. I am curious what you think, though. Do you like time travel stories as much as I do? Or do you, like my friend Kurt, just go, oh, I hate time travel? Fair, I understand both thought processes, because at the end of the day, one of the easiest things to do is abuse time travel. Once you have time travel, there's no reason why every problem just becomes an infinite source of, well, we can do this whenever. Legends of Tomorrow is one of my favorite examples of this, although only recently, because there have been plenty in the past as well. If I have a problem, any problem, let's just say that I need to stop someone who is a ninja master. Well, if I've got time travel, can't I travel back in time 100 years and then spend 6, 8 weeks learning everything I need to know about whatever in order to beat them? Or can't I just travel to the future and get some tech that allows me to? I mean, once you have time travel, realistically, you can do anything you want. That's why these rules need to be written in these shows. That's why in Timeless you can't travel back to a time you already are. That's why in Back to the Future, if you're not careful, you're going to erase yourself. Because at the end of the day, without rules, time travel is one of the most powerful powers in all of superherodom. Let's say you lose a fight. Well, who's to say you really lost it? Because after the fight, if you can get back to your time machine, you can go back and try again. In fact, that's what happens on video games, isn't it? You play a video game and you put a save state in, and then boom, oh, that didn't work out. Well, revert to my save and I'll just try again. And is there any reason why every time travel show can't do that? Well, it depends. What show is it? Legends of Tomorrow, they're trying to protect the timeline, and as such, they don't want to mess things up. Quantum Leap, he had no control over his time travel in particular. It happened at a whim. Bill and Ted, again, the time was always running in San Dimas, even though that one didn't ever really make sense to me. It's just what happened. So in general, as long as the show is somewhat self-contained and somewhat able to be self-consistent, I'm pretty happy with it, and I accept it. One of the shows that I think did it the best was an episode of Timeless, where they went back and met Ian Fleming. And when they came back from the past, hey, that sounds a lot like this episode or this movie, James Bond. Wait, there's a new James Bond movie? No, it's not new, it's from the 60s. Wait, no, there's a James Bond movie that since we were outside of time we've never seen? Man, I want to go see that one right now. But there's lots of ways to use time travel, both good and bad. In fact, I kind of wonder, if you woke up tomorrow and had a time machine, had the ability to time travel, whatever, what would you do with time travel? As much as I like to think I'm a good person, I know I'd end up breaking the space-time continuum. Because, well, I'd be greedy. I would start off simply enough. I would, find out who killed Kennedy, figure out some other conspiracy theories, whether they're right or wrong, maybe go back and meet a hero or two, but then I'd be like, hey, you know what? It wouldn't hurt anyone if I went back and got this copy of Action Comics #1, right? Or if I just looked forward a little bit to see who won the lottery, or maybe just gave myself some advice, or maybe just, tried to help myself out in the past, or tried to warn myself about some of the bad things, and then boom! Thanks for destroying the time-space reality. But okay, this is the point where I have to ask you to subscribe to my channel so you can hear more of my insane thoughts about what's going on in the world and in video games, TV shows, movies, you name it. I'm trying to build a community to talk about all sorts of geek things and the heart of the stories we tell. Now, what is the heart of the stories we tell? It's just the center point, the most important part. And in this point, we were walking through time travel and all the different ways it can affect things. I hope you have a good night, and thanks for watching.